in the United States, there's consensus right now that schools for the poor, schools for immigrant kids, schools for the descendants of formerly enslaved people are failing to educate those kids. There's no consensus that we should fix them. And that's where we break down. And the reasons are, multiple and complex, but in a word, the reasons are the traditional markers of privilege and oppression are played out in the schools. And so we live with the afterlife of slavery with us at all times. And when I was first involved in schooling and social movements, I was involved in the civil rights movement and the fight for integration of the schools, the fight for full equality in voting and education for African Americans. And we won partial victories in that, but very partial. And the form that white supremacy takes today is the creation of slums, of ghettos, which are driven by government policy and which exist all over our country, but in the big cities in particular. Mass incarceration, which is devastating to the black community, devastating. We have, you undoubtedly know, we have 2.5 million of our fellow citizens in prison, overrepresented by black and brown people, overwhelmingly poor people. And for every person incarcerated, there's a family, a mother, a father, children, wives, girlfriends, fiancés, who are suffering along with them. So we have millions of people caught up. In fact, the numbers are staggering. We are 5% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's prison population. We have more African American men under carceral supervision today than we had slaves in 1850. So the numbers are staggering, and that's why the schools are failing. To say the schools are failing is a misstatement. All schools aren't failing. The schools that my kids went to aren't failing. The schools that the Obama kids went to aren't failing. The schools of the privileged are not failing. But here's the rub. In a democracy, whatever the most privileged and wisest parents have for their children should be the standard that we as a community want for all children. Without realizing that, democracy is undermined and ultimately destroyed. That's the dilemma we're facing. That's the crisis that we're facing today.